Builders, Mike Killen here from sellyourservice.co.uk. So what do you do when a customer says that's too expensive when you tell them the price of your marketing funnels? So let's say that you've told your customer that this is the price of your marketing funnels, or maybe they're a prospect or a lead and they come back to you with, that's too expensive. What do you do then? Well, first of all, we have to understand at what stage in the buyer's journey are they to say that. For example, if you're just having a conversation with someone and they're in a lead or a prospect stage, maybe they're at the qualification call stage and they say, can you give us a vague price for what this is going to cost? And you know you don't work for projects less than $10,000 or less than $25,000 or less than $100,000. If you say to them, look, all my projects are at a minimum $25,000 and they say that's too much, that's very different to when you're talking to a customer at the proposal stage, and maybe you're at the pitch stage and it's got to the point where you already know a little bit about their business. You give them a proposal price there and you say this is $25,000 and they say that's too expensive. We're going to look at both of them. I'm actually going to start at the budget stage when we look at a proposal because I believe that's the most common time and it's also the easiest one to fix. So if you're at the proposal stage, you hand over the proposal, you send it to them, you use some software or a platform like Better Proposals or whatever it is, and they turn around to you and say, oh, that's more than we were expecting, or that's too much. You're faced with two options. First of all, what you need to do is understand how much is too much. Now, if a customer ever says that's too expensive, it's usually an indication that you've never asked for their budget. So the first point of order is to make sure that in all your previous qualification calls, in all your conversations with the customers, your discovery calls, all this kind of stuff, you need to understand what's their budget. What are they willing to spend in order to work with you? What kind of results are they willing to spend? What kind of budget are they willing to spend in order to get those results? What are they willing to give in order to get the thing that they want? There's also, however, two kind of different types of too much. Let's say you put a $30,000 proposal in front of a customer and they say, oh, that's too much. All you have to do is ask them. No matter what their budget is or what you think it might be, if you've never asked it before, whatever it is, you just say, okay, well, how much were you expecting to pay for this? If they turn around and give you something within 10 or 20% of the price that you've already got, you've got wiggle room there, and that's not a problem. You can essentially say to them, okay, well, this is why we think that you can go from 25,000 to 30,000. That price between 25 and 30 is pretty negligible. If they've got 25 grand, they've got 30 grand. If they've got 10 grand, they've got 12 grand. So differences of a 10 to 20% margin are pretty negligible, and I don't worry about it, and I can usually negotiate them up to that price for the higher price point. If they turn around and say, oh, we were expecting $1,000, or we were expecting $500, my nephew says that he can do this with Wix for $500. That's when I want to turn around and go, oh, okay, I've completely misread this situation. I thought you were serious about your business. However, it's my fault. If someone comes around to me with a budget like that and we're at the proposal stage and I give them a cost and they say that it's a tenth of the price they were expecting, I mean, 25,000 to $500 is almost like a 50th of the price. If they come back with a crazy lowball offer, that's my mistake. I should have qualified them first and I should have said to them, okay, what's your budget before going forward? If they've ever said anything along the lines of we haven't got a big budget or we haven't got a lot to spend, you need to understand what that is. You need to understand how much they are willing to spend. If we're at the stage where we're qualifying a customer and we're having a conversation with them based on what they do want, or we haven't given them a proposal yet, and we say to them, yeah, usually we're in the range of $10,000 to $25,000, and they say, oh, that's too much. Again, I want to ask, what is too much? What were you expecting to pay? So if this is before the proposal stage, at the qualification stage, I still need to find out. In fact, it's one of the first questions we ask is, what's your budget? What are you willing to spend? What are you willing to invest into your own business? Again, if they come back and they say, we were expecting 8,000, you can bump them up to 10. If they say they're expecting 15, you can bump them up to 20. A margin of 10 to 20% you can easily negotiate on. If they turn around to you and they say, oh, we were expecting to do it for $500. Me personally, I'm done with the conversation at this point. I say, thanks very much for your time. I can't help you for that price point. I'm happy to give you the details of somebody else. And it's usually for a low ball range like that, I'll usually pass them on to like one of my competitors or someone that I don't like because it really winds them up. And I'll pass them over and I'll happily, give you over to somebody else. The key though is understanding that someone only says it's too much when they're saying to you, Mike, help me understand why I should pay so much for this. Some people, however, are never going to get it. And if you ever have to boil anything down to price, it's usually one of three reasons. Either, number one, you haven't explained the value clearly enough to the customer. It's as simple as that. If they don't understand what it is that they're getting, they're going to be hesitant to spend too much money on it. That's your fault. So you might not have explained enough of what it is that they're getting. The second point, the second reason that anything ever boils down to price is that they just don't get it. Sometimes customers are never going to understand. They just don't understand, and they're never going to get the value of what it is. They're dum-dums. Frankly, I often try and equate this to if I had the winning lottery number, or I had the winning, or a check maybe, if I had a written out check for $100,000 or $1 million or something like that, and I was offering to sell that check or sell that winning lottery ticket for $10,000 or $100,000, most people would think, I need to find $100,000 so I can buy this. However, some people are just never going to understand it, and they're always going to think that you're always trying to con them, regardless of whether you actually are or you aren't. I'm going to assume you're not trying to con anyone, but most people who don't understand it, there's nothing you can do to convince them otherwise, so I would just back straight off. The third reason that you ever have to boil something down to price is because along the way, there's been some kind of friction between the two of you, and they understand the value, but they're trying to work out why it is that you cost this much and someone else costs this much. Usually that's because they don't trust you. There's not enough trust there. You haven't built up enough of an influence. Something along those lines, that's usually an indicator. Even if they understand the value, even if they understand what they're going to be getting, they might not trust you to deliver those results, and that's why their price is considered too high. So when we're having a conversation with the customer and we say to them, okay, and this could be at the prospect stage, the qualification stage, the proposal stage, and they say, that's too much. If it's a super lowball number, me personally, I'll just walk away from the deal. I'm not interested in dealing with anyone who's got a super lowball figure. If, however, there's someone and they say, let's say we've given them a $10,000 proposal and they literally only have $8,000. First of all, that is an indication to me that that customer has got all of their money put on this, and I don't want to work with them because that's way too much pressure. However, occasionally there are times when a $35,000 proposal, they only have a budget for 30 grand. They've got plenty of money elsewhere, but they've only allocated 30 grand. That's fine. In which case, and this is during the proposal stage, I'll say to them, what features would you like to remove from this proposal in order to bring it down? Bearing in mind, they've already seen everything they can get for $35,000. And now I'm telling them, that's fine. If you have a budget of $30,000, that's absolutely fine. What can we remove in order to bring that price point down? Here's what's interesting. Very rarely will customers ever actually want to do that. They'll say, oh, well, we were kind of hoping that you could just negotiate on price. Never negotiate on price. The rule is never negotiate on price, only negotiate on deliverables. So never negotiate on price, only negotiate on deliverables. You say, yeah, well, we can bring the price down, but we obviously have to cut out a few of these features. One of two things is going to happen. 90% of the time, they're going to magically find that budget. It's really interesting when customers all of a sudden, they've seen the car with the super dark sports model and you go, okay, well, we've got the regular model here. All of a sudden, they don't want to go down to the regular model because in that case, they perceive that as a downsell. So they'll find the money. Or they'll say, okay, let's take out whatever. What do you think is the least necessary feature? In which case, I'll take something out, usually on the back end, so I won't take out any of the consultation or design work or building work. It's usually the traffic stuff that I tend to take out, and I'll revisit that at a later point. If a customer ever says to you, look, this budget is too high, there's a series of questions you need to go through. First of all, how high is too high? So what were you expecting to pay? Depending on whether they're the proposal stage or the qualification stage, that might then indicate what it is that you need to do and where the boundaries are. also, depending on what their margin is on what you've given them, if they've got a budget of 15 grand and you've given them a 20 grand proposal, they can probably find that 5 grand. I don't ever want to pressure anyone into doing it, particularly if they're putting all their money into it, because it's too much pressure for me. If it's a super low ball offer, that's when I say, no thanks, I can't help you. I'm going to pass your details on to somebody else. Let me know, guys, if that was helpful in the comments below. Asking the budget question to me is really, really important, and it's one of the first things we ask any customer in order to make sure that we're not wasting their time and they're not wasting our time. I don't want to deal with tire kickers. But like I said, a lot of the time, customers can find the budget depending on when you ask. And also, you should start asking earlier if you're finding that a lot of the time your customers are saying, that's too expensive for us during the proposal stage. Thanks very much for watching to the end of the video. I'm Mike from sellyourservice.co.uk. Keep building those funnels.